Good evening, Catherine Hine. How are you?
Good. You doing okay, Luciana?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we're in another broadcast of recording anyway of uh, with liberty and justice for all, common law under God, um, and we're going to be talking today about the right to travel, and not just that it's an empty right, but some practical solutions to the problem that we have, that there's a growing number of roadway hazards, some of which you're already familiar with, some like the risk of organ harvesting that you're not familiar with. Um, I want to start with a little bit of a prayer and just to ask our Heavenly Father to guide our steps as we go through this broadcast and make it of use to people who are on the road, and so that they will find the words when they travel in order to avert catastrophes. We know um, that our Lord Yeshua advised his people when they were going forward to sell your cloak and buy a sword. Um, I don't know that I'm telling people to do that. I think the sword that we have is our faith in you, Lord, and our faith will strengthen us so that we're not frightened of man. And and we have a few props, though, Lord, and we hope that those are pleasing to you, and that will strengthen people's faith as they travel in the knowledge that you are always watching over us. Amen. Okay. One of the things that happens, the obvious one is that we see those flashing lights behind us as we're traveling. So many times, as we know, this can lead to deadly results. Uh, and
Unfortunately,
yeah, and when we're stressed, it's the most difficult time of all to think of the right words to say. We don't want to be aggressive, and this is and we don't want to be passive either. And that's the challenge that most of us have, because we've been instructed to be one way or the other, one extreme or the other. And I think our true path is in between, to be assertive and to not be trying to annoy anybody with the assertion that we're special, we're free, we're this, we're that. Not sure how free we are, other than in our minds through our faith. But one of the first things that, I mean, we know how the script goes pretty much, but instead of allowing him to take the first step, I think maybe one of the first things that you say is, "What is your emergency that I can help you with? I see your lights." And generally, if there is no emergency, the light should, emergency lights would be a false warning that is likely to cause alarm or danger, even, and certainly inconvenience to the public. And in Ohio, and probably in other states, there's even statutes and codes in their fake corporate system. In Ohio, it's 2917.32 that is a misdemeanor and can be a felony, can lead to civil liability, to create a false emergency. Because generally speaking, when people are traveling down the road, they are being careful for their own safety. And now there is exceptions. certainly. But for the most part, um, we need to understand that these emergency lights that are going on are not doing anything to keep anybody safer. And certainly, we know, I think I brought it up on the broadcast a number of times before, that according to their case law, um, these people have no duty to protect or serve us. And that has been affirmed at their highest levels in their United States Supreme Court. Um, if you are having a life and death struggle with a serial killer and you call the cops, they have no duty to come out and help you. None. That's not their job. So, their job is revenue generation. Now, they don't want that generally known, but it's a matter of public record that they don't have any duty to protect you. So, what are they there for? They're there to extort money from you. They're there to frighten you into doing whatever they say, including basically to take the ticket, preferably sign the ticket, and to show up or not show up. They'll tell you, "Oh, you don't have to show up," um, and
You could just pay us the $200-300 online.
yeah, right, right. Um, but I believe that, and this is the purpose of this broadcast, is to let you know that you can. Some people carry copies of some of the case law with them, um, including Shapiro versus Thompson, 394 U.S. 618, which admits that the right to travel is a common right. Throughout the Bible, it's pretty clear that we're intended to be able to travel freely wherever we want to go, as long as we're harming no one else in doing so.
Did you ever see how they combine traffic and criminal? If you look up someone's case, and it's just a traffic ticket, it's under traffic criminal, and so they consider you a criminal if
Hmm.
if if they decided that you were speeding or did put your blinker on or something like that. All of a sudden, you've got a criminal record. Criminal
I'm,
record.
I'm glad you mentioned that because they will often the the corporate code enforcer will bring up at the very beginning that he has the right to require you to identify yourself. That's another matter too. You have no duty to identify yourself if you're not causing any injury, harm, or loss to anyone. You're not endangering anyone. They will say that, oh, but I clocked you at 46 and a 45 or whatever, and that endangered people. Um, I don't know if he's even able to articulate that. That's a crime, they'll say. So I'm investigating a crime because you travel over the posted limit, and that entitles me to demand to know who you are. He's got it in reverse. That's not a crime. Um, that's just part of their revenue generation. Because again, you'll ask, well, uh, who did I endanger? Who did I cause injury, harm, or loss to? Where's where's the affidavit from someone that I harmed them? Um, where's your they're supposed to have in their world a reasonable articulable suspicion before they interfere with your freedom to go on about your business.
Mhm.
Uh,
They
that's
have
just
to,
something they dreamed up themselves, though.
yeah, and this is what this is what these code enforcers who like to call themselves law, what do they call themselves? Law enforcers, and
Yeah.
they're actually code enforcers, and they're
Mhm.
just they go through this training, and in the training, this is what they're being taught. This is what they're being taught. And instead of looking up the law themselves, they just go by what their superiors tell them, and they go out
Yes.
and hunt people down and hunt people down.
I found that in other parts of the cabal too, like in their psychiatric system. There's all kinds of stuff in the case law. You can't do this and you can't do that. Sounds good, in their so-called case law, but their underlings who are administering this don't have a clue in the world. They don't even know how the statute reads. They really don't. They think they do because they read a few flyers that their supervisors gave them. They do not know what their own codes and the interpretations of those codes say in their own system.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in another one of their cases from 1958 is Kent versus Dulles, 357 U.S. 116. At page 125. So actually, as far as yeah, and it used to be emphasized that the right to travel is it was certainly a right known at common law. It's been known for centuries, and and it's been deemed to be a fundamental constitutional right in their system. Not just a constitutional right, but a fundamental constitutional right. Really one of the biggies in their system. And in the last couple of decades, of course, that's gone by the way, and they don't pay attention to their own statutes and codes as far as the posted limit isn't really a limit at all. There is case law in their system that says if you're going, say the posted limit is 45, if you're going 45, you are presumed to be traveling at a reasonable rate of speed. That's what that means. It's a presumption of lawfulness, not a presumption that if you go the slightest bit over this, you're a criminal. No, that's not what that means. Not even in their system. So if you get into an argument about, and that'll probably come up first, it'll come up along the same time that they're demanding one of their permissions to see your permission slips to even be traveling at all. And as I think we've talked about on this broadcast before, a license is just a permission slip, a license to do anything, practice medicine, drive a vehicle, travel,
Go fishing.
go fishing. Yeah, anything. They think they own the right and that they have to give you permission.
Right. To be married. To be married.
To be married. Right. To transfer, to buy and sell, to be in business. You need the permission, they think.
Everything.
And
Everything.
and we're not even talking about commerce that is interstate commerce. We're talking about simple commerce within the state republic. That's a whole other discussion, actually, about interstate commerce. That didn't come in until the 1787 Constitution. When we had the 1781 Constitution, or they had it. We never had it. We never signed anything. Our ancestors never signed anything. But with the 1781 Constitution, there was no right, no power. They didn't start giving themselves powers until the 1787 Constitution. The Constitution was always supposed to be, this was to restrict government agents from interfering with the rights of the people. That's all it was ever supposed to be for, until it started to be about more than that. And, our ancestors gave them an inch and they took a mile. So as far as the obligation to identify, that's not something that the master is required to submit to the servant. The servant submits to the master. Are we their servants? No. Aren't they supposed to be our servants? If so, and clearly it is the case, then and there's nothing in even their codes that allows them to force the people to identify themselves unless they've caused injury, harm, or loss to someone.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but we can require that of them, and I think it's a good idea for people to carry with them a public servant questionnaire, and that will ask them for their full name, badge number, and the name of their liability insurance carrier. If anybody wants to see one of those, I should have sent that to you earlier, Luciana. I think we may have mentioned it before, but it's you can email me at wljaradio@aol.com. That's wljaradio@aol.com, and I will send you a sample public servant questionnaire, usually a 2 or 3 page document where they have to explain themselves. This is typical of the requirements of an employer and an employee. The employee has to answer questions from the employer, not the other way around. And it's often good to back up if you're good at thinking on your feet, and you get this script memorized. You can let him know that your time is valuable, and the fact that he stopped you is itself an arrest in their system. It certainly is an interference with your rights, and indicate that those rights, your time is a right, and it has value. And you can indicate, I don't work for free, and I charge $500 a minute, whatever you want to charge. And you can let them know if you continue to detain me, you can call it detention, you can call it, interference with liberty. I promise you that I will make claims against you, your supervisor, and any other public employee that continues to cause me harm. If you want to avoid having to deal with your liability carrier or your risk management people and the possibility of being labeled a problem employee or even terminated, you can always walk back to your cruiser and stop preventing me from exercising my constitutionally protected right to travel.
And the thing is, now the FBI is training police officers or code enforcement officers that when we use that type of language, the FBI is literally training police that we are sovereign citizens and we are domestic terrorists, and they should look at us as we are a danger and treat us as so. So they automatically, when you use that language, they come off angry with you and very, very upfront, and it's unreal what's happening out there. But
yeah, it can be that way.
they don't question this training. They just go along with it. It's
right.
crazy.
Sometimes I've also heard the accusation hurled that you're a constitutionalist.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Or you're one of those free men. What?
So, well, I wouldn't mind being called a free man or a free woman. Isn't that, what's the opposite of that? What am I supposed to want to be, a slave? And because that's what they are. And they don't think they are, but they need to think, yeah, they are. they are the ones that are the slaves. If they renounce their duties to God and act uh, illegally, unlawfully, immorally to harm other people because they're enslaved to what they think is this corporation that is going to reward them with some wonderful retirement plan. So they're enslaved too.
Mhm.
Even the black robed wonders are enslaved too. They have traded their um, their conscience and their morality for money, and that was actually, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier on, but I wanted to bring that up. That seems to be, the disturbingly common thread that runs through everything that we see them do, and that is this pathological worship of money. And uh,
Even at the expense of harming innocent people.
oh yes, absolutely.
You know, at the end, it's just, well, that's what my boss says, and I got to do, and I'm not going to risk my paycheck, even though I'm going to ruin your day and ruin your future by
Well, and
stopping you.
that's the basis for how the world works now, and has worked for
And and
centuries, but we
and
just haven't noticed.
and so many people I know are saying now, well, then don't do anything wrong, or but it's not about doing anything wrong. It's about them
No,
looking for ways to generate money, and
that's all it is.
they will stop you for like anything anymore.
Well, or just make it up.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things, and this happened actually even before United States became obviously incorporated in when Lysander Spooner was writing in 1867. He pointed out that the banksters were basically running things because they found that the best loans that they could make were to governments. The best way to be able to charge really high interest and have an easy way of collecting was to lend to governments at usurious interest rates, which of course are prohibited by the Bible. And how will they? Uh, why do they lend to governments? Because governments will use the funds to terrorize the people and extract more money from the people. And so it'll be an easy matter to collect from these governments. So it's always about um, uh, the more they lend them, the higher the interest rates they can continue to charge them. And that's what makes the world go round, according to them. Um, they were seeing this to a degree, our Lord Yeshua was seeing this and really reacted the most, in really the only violent way I think that is spoken of in the Bible, when he upturned the tables of the money lenders in the temple. He knew that was the root of all evil.
Right. Yeah.
It led to every other type of evil. It might seem innocuous at first, but in order to keep that revenue generation going, uh, historically through the centuries, tyrants have used extortion and usury and actual murders to achieve the terror that they need to extract large amounts of money from the people. And okay, so we know what the problem is. So how do we address it? And that was, if you'll put up the, oh, okay, if you put up the form that, that I've prepared for guarding against these roadway hazards, it's a notice of claim, and we've talked about notices of claim, common law notices of claim before.
Is this the notice of revocation?
Yes,
Okay.
and that is scrolling up. This is just a draft because we don't have people who are willing to do this yet. First of all, we're giving them notice that they don't have any authority to interfere with the right to travel, that they're going to be liable for maintaining public and private nuisances, which is usually referring to the extortion rackets that they run. And we name the people who are running them, at least the ones in Ohio. We warn them about that they're potentially liable for the assaults, the batteries, the kidnaps, the extortion, the theft, the intentional infliction of mental distress, and the infringement on the right to contract that are all tied up with these rackets. And I just thought it'd be useful for people to understand this isn't just this, vague evil that suddenly you're aware is descending on you when you set out on the roadway. There are people who are inflicting this, and I've been working on this a while. In Ohio, the first one I decided to name, of course, who's connected to the other so-called state agencies that are more directly involved in creating the roadway hazards, is the CEO of State of Ohio, Michael DeWine, known by other names, and involved in other evils besides this one. So he's supposed to be supervising all of this stuff. He's an attorney, he's a bar member, he's aware of exactly what's going on. Then there's David Yost, who's the
Catherine,
so-called.
is this the correct one I'm showing?
Let me see.
Notice of revocation.
Yeah, it'll start out that way. No, wait. No, that's not it. No.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought this was the copy and paste that I sent you.
Okay.
The last thing I sent you.
Okay.
This is for the purpose of, well, I'll go through it with people, but the purpose of this is, while you're looking for it, is to generate a judgment entry that people will be able to carry with them that will be a shield. It can also be a sword, but it's a shield, certainly, and that will have a certain impact, more than just you're trying to argue with, and we don't want to argue with these people. They don't have any logical abilities in any case. So, and I wanted to bring up, before I've forgot, that the people who are running these public nuisances is what they are. There's a series of public nuisances that interfere with our right to travel. And the first respondent that I've got is the so-called governor, and he's just an administrator for the corporation that's masquerading as the original Ohio Republic, but isn't. Then the next one I name is David Yost, who's the so-called
Okay,
attorney general.
here it is. Is this it, Catherine?
Uh,
Yeah, this is it.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. David Yost, and then Sharon Kennedy.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. And she's the one that's, I believe, has the title of Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Ohio, which, of course, is another series of corporations, and we list the Dun & Bradstreet numbers for them. Then I name Andy Wilson, the guy who's he has some position as an executive with the Ohio Department of Public Safety. And just a little, I don't know, factoid about the structure, at least in Ohio, of the various agencies. Ohio Department of Public Safety has been known, they've changed their corporate structure and their corporate names a bunch of different times. But the parent corporation seems to be Ohio Department of Public Safety, and the other ones, Ohio Department of the Bureau of the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles is a division of that, and then there's other divisions of the Ohio Department of Public Safety. I thought they were separate, considered separate, but they're not. Ohio Department of the Highway Patrol, whatever the name of that corporation is, and yeah, that's the Charles Jones is the head of the agent for Ohio Department of Public Safety. That's part of. Did I say I meant to say he's part of Ohio State Highway Patrol. They're a subsidiary organization underneath Ohio Department of Public Safety. And now Ohio Department of Transportation, that's run by this man named Jack Marchbanks, is you never hear these people's names, but
yeah, I know. I've never heard that name before.
Yeah, but they're the ones that really have their boots on your neck, much more so than that guy in the uniform and the shiny badge. So he's running Ohio Department of Transportation, also known as ODOT, and they have various projects of their own that make roadway travel hazardous. And fixing the potholes is not part of what they do, because that's not really revenue generating. Then there's
Charles Jones.
Yeah, Charles Norman, Bureau of Motor Vehicles. And I believe that part of what they do is they make up all these rules and regulations for what kind of information they will demand from the public to give them their permission slips. It's not enough just to require a permission slip. Then they also demand, before we give you the permission slip you don't need, we're going to, demand information we're not entitled to have. So, and if you don't toe the line and do what we say, we're going to take away our permission using entities that have no authority to take away anything. All right, so it appears to be that Charles Norman runs the operations that require you to jump through a whole lot of hoops to transfer title of your vehicle, to actually make a sale. If you purchase a car or truck, which I'm currently in the process of doing or attempting to do, um, there's no need to involve somebody else. If I want to purchase a car or a truck from a seller, then I intend to prepare a normal buy and sell agreement in writing that tells what the price is, how it's going to be paid, what the expectations are of the condition of the vehicle, and I'm not going to, that bill of sale or that contract will be the evidence that the only evidence I need that the contract was consummated. And I don't need to involve any of these people in this. And I don't need to cut them in on fines and fees.
Oh, they need their cut,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's your vehicle, but they need their cut,
Well, that's what this notice is intended to lead to, is a judgment that will establish, with their consent, they will consent, will establish that they are not at all entitled to do any of this. And that it's enough that I have first of all, is there some presumption that if I'm using a private conveyance, that somehow I'm not entitled, it isn't really mine? And who are they to inquire anyway as to whether, did you steal it? Is it yours? Did you pay us? The this and the that and the other thing that we demand every time any transaction happens in state of Ohio. Well, this transaction didn't happen in state of Ohio. It happened in the Ohio Republic between people. Didn't happen, between persons that you may very well be able to regulate. But
what is this life bank? This Jim, you see this up? You have
okay, life bank. Yeah, here's another deal. And there's a number of these organizations that are organ harvesting organizations, and I name them. These are like everybody, like the people who are surreptitiously masquerading as government. They're not even claiming to be government. They're clearly private for-profit corporations, and they have their own Dun and Bradstreet numbers. And they have, I think one of these had 13 members on their board, and they're maybe one of them had a medical background. Anyway, they're organ harvesters.
Is that the list there, Catherine?
Yeah, there's Jim Will, who runs Life Bank, and that seems to be kind of the larger, or I don't know if it's the parent corporation or not. Then there's Kent Holloway, CEO of Lifeline of Ohio. He co-directs it with Barry Massa, and they're running Network for Life, formerly known as Lifeline of Ohio. They keep changing their names.
Why is that?
I don't know. One of them called itself Gift of Life for a while. That didn't run too well, though, and they quickly changed it. They were occupying Suite 200 at 770 Kinnear Road in Columbus, Ohio, but now business is so good that they're able to occupy the entire building, and they're investing in more too. Yeah, so that's what's going on in Central Ohio, and they've been consolidating. There had been like 4 different or 4 or 5 different organ harvesting uh, organizations. Now it's down to, I think it looks like about 3. There's this Matthew Wadsworth with Life Connection of Ohio, formerly known as Life Connection of Toledo, but they're bigger now. So, and they're in Lucas County, out of Maumee, Ohio.
And now they're the
And
Life Connection of Ohio Foundation LLC, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes, that's right. And
Another name change.
it's sort of a support organization. So support it it's um, it does the financing part of the organ harvesting, the main organ harvesting corporation. Now, these people don't actually harvest the organs, okay? They just manage it. They're actual physicians, or I guess they're physicians in the various hospitals that do that. I don't think that these people are actually uh, that they actually have facilities that are extracting organs from people who are, and that's what we'll get into, people who are deceased, recently deceased, or not quite yet deceased. That's the problem. That's why what they're running is is a torture operation, or it could be. Let's put it that way. What we know for sure is, and I'm going to just scroll down to yeah, part E, yeah. And this is why we consider it a roadway hazard. So
What page is
stay with
that?
me. I'm
What
going
page is
somewhere
that?
with this.
What page is that?
Let's see, 7.
Okay.
Capital E.
Oh, wait, went too far.
And when there are a number of situations where, of course, certainly code enforcers will run into people who are injured on the roadway. And sometimes those are painful injuries that require hospitalization. Okay. And one of the first questions that they will want to know is, did this man or woman who's injured sign up to be an organ donor? Because you never know, right? What might happen in the hospital, even if you just have a broken leg. You might get remdesivir, things can happen. And they want to be ready, and they want to make sure that they can harvest what they need to harvest. So now, and a lot of people think, well, I didn't check off the permission. It's right on the front of your driver's license. But, private corporate code enforcers have access to other information, including if you have ever signed an organ donation consent on previous driver's licenses, and you didn't take steps to revoke that, they will consider it still in effect. Say,
Yeah.
so they will consider you an organ donor, and they will convey that information to any first responders, any hospital people. And there's a Dr. Paul Byrne, Byrne, actually from Lucas County, physician who has written extensively on what is happening, certainly at BMV, when you sign that, you check off the box, you don't even sign it, you just check the box that you'll be an organ donor. You presume that means they wait till you're dead to do that, right? Not necessarily. They were finding that, and this goes back to Christian Barnhart from South Africa, who did one of the first heart transplants, that they weren't getting really good results uh, if even if they were extracting the organ within seconds after death, because the blood flow had stopped. Um, there are all kinds of reasons, medical reasons, that this was just not effective. And of course, make no mistake, organ donation is not a walk in the park for the recipient of the organ, because this is not exactly what God intended. You know, He intended us to take care of our bodies and to use the organs that He put there, not extract them from someone else. So they will have to take the donee, the recipient will have to take anti-rejection pharmaceutical products for the rest of what will be a very short life. And it's not a great situation. Now, is any of this explained to the man or woman that thinks they're doing a really good thing when they're checking the box? Oh, yes, I love my fellow man and I'm going to be an organ donor. They don't know that what happens is that organ donation is starting to be seen as, oh, well, you've been taking, pharmaceuticals, and you've been drinking, and you've been destroying your liver all this time. Instead of telling you to get on a better plan for your health and clean up your diet and your health habits, there's always organ donation, right? We'll get you a new liver, right? Except they don't tell you about the consequences of that and how that new liver is not really going to work the way cleaning up the one you were born with would have worked. So I'm not sure which, I can go back and forth between why organ donation is a bad deal for the organ donor, but it's also a bad deal for the organ donee. Because they are not getting the kind of quality health advice that they should be getting. Instead of organ donation being seen as a last resort, it's being seen as a first resort. Why? We know why. And Dr. Paul Byrne calls it a hoax. Organs extracted even moments after true death has occurred are medically undesirable for implantation in recipients. Now we're on why this is not a good deal for the donor. How do we know that organs are typically extracted while the donor is still alive and capable of feeling pain? Of course, the extraction of the vital organ will then kill the donor, who might otherwise recover from whatever the injury was. Say he was picked up on the roadway with a broken leg, and maybe he could have recovered from that. So the science behind brain death had to be created, and that happened pretty much within a few years or less of the experimental procedures that Dr. Barnhart did with the first heart transplant. So anyway, is any of that explained to the donor or the donee either? Not explained to the donee either. So the science behind brain death, it had to be created, and that in itself is nonsense. That it never existed before organ donation, organ harvesting started to be seen as lucrative. You were either dead or alive. You weren't I don't know if anybody remembers the Karen Ann Quinlan case, where she was supposed to be somewhere in between life and death. They weren't yet asking the question, can we harvest her organs yet? And in that case, those organs were probably not harvestable because of the pharmaceuticals that they had been injecting her with. But in any case, this was the first right to die case, or the right for relatives to decide that she could not continue to be in a permanent vegetative state. And nobody wants to remain in a permanent vegetative state. But this is not, the science behind that has been very much perverted. So then there's, I don't know if anybody's commenting or, if there's anything we want to go into with the organ donation. I mean, that's not exactly the first thing you think of when you think of roadway hazards. But I wanted to get back into that. There's another roadway hazard, and that is that once they stop a traveler and they, for whatever reason, deem that they could extract even greater sums if they were to prosecute that, gather evidence to prosecute the traveler for something else. And that might need to be, particularly if the traveler is not willing to give consent to search their vehicle. Because we don't really have any assurance, with the profit motive being what it is, that there aren't, such things as throwdown weapons that are, oh, look what I found, that wasn't there before. And, yeah. So, what they often will do then is employ the services of trained dogs, also known as K9 units. However, in independent testing of whether the K9 unit is able to actually sniff various pharmaceutical products or illicit drugs, that the evidence is far from being clear, because in a controlled experiment with a trained canine and his handler, they were finding that the dogs were giving false positives about 85% of the time. Yeah. Why would that be? And they were finding that the handlers were giving the dog false signals. They had various areas to be searched, and they would tell the officers, there's drugs here, there's not drugs here, and we don't know if there's drugs here, and see what your dog does. And the bias was always in favor of finding drugs, especially when the officers told there are drugs there. Well, they were falsely told that there were drugs there. That's the thing. But the handler gave the dog the signal to act as if there were drugs even where there weren't. So, okay. Another roadway hazard I think I referred to before would be in the area that Mr. Marchbanks and his agents are supposed to be running. I think he's the guy. I'm looking at item 3 under capital E. He's the guy in item F on page 8. Don't think that besides not doing, what would be actually useful by keeping the roadways free of potholes, and they may take care of that from time to time. Could we, the people, get that job done cheaper, you think, than what we pay Marchbanks and his cadre of agents? I think we probably could. Okay. But what Marchbanks is into is exploring various novel technologies such as electric cars, self-automated cars, and trucks. So they're out there. And I think we all know that electric cars have an annoying tendency to run out of fuel. And, a stalled vehicle is always going to be a potential roadway hazard. And then there's self-automated cars and trucks. First, on the electric cars, they're known to use petroleum products indirectly and therefore waste energy, leading to financial harm to those who do use petroleum products as fuel. It raises the rate that they're paying. Self-automated cars are presenting a new risk that we really haven't seen before. Greater risk of fires from lithium batteries, which can lead to explosions also, leading to uncontrolled increases in temperature and pressure, known as thermal runaway. And thermal runaway and other safety risks on the average of every 8 miles in real world driving. Okay. So this is the self-automated cars. And that's if you trust being on the roadway with cars that are unmanned. What could go wrong, right?
Really? What could possibly go wrong?
Right.
Oh, wow.
And the problem is that the human operator is commonly unprepared to deal with these malfunctions in the self-automated cars, which happen about every 8 miles. So yeah, okay. Here's the deal. There's supposed to be a human operator in the self-automated vehicles, okay, to take over if anything bad happens. But the human operator is usually not prepared for that. So that's not working real well for them. In any case.
What are they doing while the car is operating itself? I mean, if they're obviously too busy to drive the car themselves, are they sleeping? What are they doing?
Yeah, maybe, watching TV in the car. I don't know what they're doing.
I don't know.
Both electric conveyances and self-automated conveyances are susceptible to cyber attacks affecting braking and steering. So that could be happening to, around you when you're on the roadway, and, you're going to have to be really good at your defensive driving skills to avoid that. Because these people, Marchbanks and his gang are implementing, the placement of these hazards in your path for money. And so in our notice, we indicate that the claimant, whoever is the claimant, is unwilling to assume the risks of such travel. And there will be actually a request for an injunction to prohibit Marchbanks from continuing to endanger travelers on Ohio public roadways. Okay. Then there's another little project that Marchbanks, is it Marchbank or Marchbanks? Marchbanks, plural. Marchbanks is engaged in that harms the traveling public, and that is the use of drones. So we got aircraft, oftentimes unmanned aircraft, flying at really low altitudes to monitor what the private code enforcers seem to miss. Got to keep that revenue generation going.
Mm-hmm.
And in the template, I've got the link showing an ODOT project and the planned legal justifications for it, and plans for smart transportation, including drones, electric vehicles, self-automated vehicles, and always under the supervision of low-flying self-automated drones. Yeah. Now, there are other hazards in addition to the, and we're going to kind of cut this short, I think. But there's other hazards that are introduced by private industry. Of course, it's all private industry. The traffic surveillance cameras. And I know a little bit about those because we stopped those in Chillicothe, Ohio, back in 2009. What we were finding there, and that's where instead of pretending to be the government, these traffic surveillance companies are putting the people running those are putting up these sensors at intersections that will force people to either speed up to get through a yellow light, or and therefore be presumed to be guilty of speeding, or they will jam on the brakes in order to avoid that, causing more rear-end collisions. We were finding that there are a lot more rear-end collisions, and collisions of all kinds at the traffic camera intersections. But but the people run, the so-called mayor of City of Chillicothe Corporation were like, oh, but it's about public safety. It's about public safety. Well, how's it public safety if we're having more accidents and after you put in this brilliant scheme that we're paying for than after, than before, I should say. We also found out, and one of the members of our court, I don't know if he's listening now, William Laux, who's an electrical engineer, found that they were sure that the camera company, in collusion apparently with the agents of the city, were shortening the yellow light at these intersections, just those intersections. Am I still on?
You are, yes.
Okay. Yes. And so that to encourage people to miscalculate how long that yellow would be to create more apparent violations. And they found that the video that they presented,
that was shortening the yellow light, you said, right?
Shortening the yellow light, so that compared to how it is at the non-camera intersections.
Wow.
So,
I'm gonna pay attention to that.
which forces you to, stop premature suddenly, or to speed through the intersection. Either way, they want to induce a violation that they can bill you for,
Yep. Yep.
and they have absolutely no authority to do any of it. But the other thing they were doing is when they videoed this, they to prove if anybody ever demands a hearing of some kind in front of this private corporation, that they will have video to show, oh yeah, you were speeding, but they're cutting out frames.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that they can artificially. Yeah.
Right. If it's possible for them to do that, you can rest assured they are doing it.
Absolutely.
You know, and people just trust them. People just trust them because they're the law. That's what people think.
Mm-hmm.
So they're to be trusted. They wouldn't mess with the video footage, would they, Catherine?
Apparently, the people just do anything for money. I didn't used to think that, but it seems like it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy too. That the more you go down that road, the more you have to go down that road.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the template is pretty much what we do with all of our notices of liability, and that is don't even try and get your private corporate fake tribunals to tell us that we can't do this, because this is a common law proceeding. So don't be confused about who we are and who you are, because we're all just people, and common law deals only with people, and we're given them much more of a due process opportunity to rebut what we're saying. If what we're saying isn't true, if these facts aren't really true, then they have an opportunity to rebut those with facts of their own. And we'll see if they do that. Now, if they react the way these perpetrators usually react, is they will not respond, because they
don't want to be guilty. They don't want to be guilty of perjury on top of everything else. Maybe.
Right. That's what I think. Okay, so yeah. Wow, we had a comment from Keith that a heavy drinker and smoker destroyed her liver, but received a new one and lived only another 4 years. She was only 58 when her liver had failed in the first place. Maybe if she had stopped the drinking and the smoking, she could have restored her own liver. God made us fearfully and wonderfully to self-heal if we will just allow his handiwork to do what it does. Okay, so anyway, we anticipate that this 3 notice process, and 1 man or woman can do it, 2, 5, however many want to do what needs to be done to bring this claim to the ones that are creating a public and private nuisance on our roadways. We can get a judgment, I would say, within 2 to 3 months. Might be less, depends on how much help we get. And Luciana and I and Keith and very few others are doing everything we can. We're working constantly to to find out this information and to find remedies, including collection, and which turns out, is basically the same as collection in their system. So we will continue, but it would sure be nice to have some help. If for those who choose to join us and join in this notice of claim, this 3 notice process, which is biblically ordained and by Yeshua himself in Matthew 18, verses 15 through 18. I think I got the citation right. You will have, at the end of the process, you will have a judgment. You'll have, and you can carry around a certified file stamp signed judgment establishing their liability, and including an injunction prohibiting them from doing all the stuff we've just talked about that they do to endanger us on the roadway. All the, the coming up behind us with the flashing lights for no reason, all the other than revenue generation, all the traffic camera stuff, all the roadway hazards of the drones and the self-automated vehicles. We will, if they ignore us, we will issue injunctions against Marchbanks and his agents. And they're going to know that they will have to not just violate rights that their U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly admitted that we have, they will also be violating a court order. And you think they're going to laugh at our court order? We're finding out they're not laughing so hard these days. So we're going to keep on keeping on.
We're going to keep on keeping on, Catherine. We have to. We have to.
Right. That's right.
We are not. We come this far to stop or go back now. Definitely not going back.
I found a really wonderful meme I posted on my Facebook page, and if I can find it real quick. And I got it from another common law court in another state, and it says, "No, you will not be mandating anything to me. Apparently, there's some confusion on your part about the relationship we have. You work for me. I'm not your servant nor your slave. I will not be talked down to. I will not be mandated to. I will not be forced to do anything against my will. You are my employee. It's not your place. Get it straight."
They need people. I like that. They really need to get it straight.
Yeah. We're going to keep hammering the point home, won't we, Luciana?
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Many of us will. And many of the others will bow down to that system and continue bowing down to what obviously they consider to be their master. Well, they could choose to bow down to their master, and I will bow down to mine, Yeshua.
Absolutely. We have no earthly masters. Yeah. And they wouldn't have to either. We're not saying we're better than anybody else. We just chose the narrow path that our Lord and Savior instructed us to follow.
And I think a lot of their bowing down to man comes from their fear.
Yes.
But losing.
And that comes from ignorance.
Yes, it comes from ignorance, and it comes from not having a strong enough relationship with the Lord, our Savior. Because if you did, you would have faith and he gives you more knowledge, and more strength to stand up to these things.
Okay, well, if anybody wants to get further information, I would suggest you look at our other common law processes and that have led to judgments, and some are still in the works. If you go to www.occr2021.com, you can see the work that we have done so far. And we welcome other Ohioans who are willing to shed their chains of slavery to join us and become members of our court as well, and be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And those who are up to their eyeballs in in sinning against and causing injury, harm, or loss to their fellow man, we invite you to step away, beg for forgiveness, and become a whistleblower. Um, some are already doing that, and we need more.
We definitely
So,
do. We definitely do.
all right. Okay. Well, and contact me if you have any ideas about topics for next week. Uh, WLJA radio at AOL.com. And I will be
Uh,
happy to talk with you
I
about that.
I also have the court's website up here of OCCR2021 at gmail.com. And they could also contact us there. And they have your phone numbers listed there, Catherine.
That's
And
right.
and Catherine, I just want to thank you. And for those that don't know, Catherine makes herself very available to anyone calling with questions or a problem and wanting to learn how to fix that with the three notice process, and to step out of I call it Satan's playground, Satan's sandbox.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy to talk to anybody, especially Ohioans. But
Exactly.
I'll talk to anybody, and we have helped people in other state republics to form their own common law courts. And
And
yes,
real quick, Catherine, somebody was asking if we could give an update on what's going on with the Roger Hilligus case.
last I knew that there were some sort of plea negotiations, what they call plea negotiations by the kidnappers themselves with Roger, and they were supposed to happen today, but I have not heard anything as to the outcome of that. We had high hopes about that, but I don't know. They, I don't really want to comment about anything that hasn't happened yet, but it would certainly be in the interest of the kidnappers, um, so-called Judge Barry Breslow, and and the sheriff, so-called sheriff, the corporate sheriff. Last name is Balaam, Balaam.
Oh, wow.
Anybody want to look that up in the Bible, see what that is? Roger is currently being tortured, and but he is maintaining his faith in God. He has been deprived for weeks on end to his Bible. He has been deprived of.
Still, Catherine.
No, he has it now, but they continue to deprive him of his right um, to go into
The Bible studies.
Bible study. Yeah, and they have assigned him a red jumpsuit to show how dangerous he is, so that
Wow.
others who are also locked up might turn on him. These are the kinds of tactics these people use. Yeah. Now, just so you know, Roger did make the mistake of believing that he could fight this fight within their system. So it is what it is. And I think he understands now and would have done it differently now. But that's why we always warn people, stop filing in their system. Their system does not work no matter how many times they tell you it does. It is not for you. It is for them and their to serve their private greed. That's all it's for. So
People
yeah.
keep thinking, well, if I file just this one last thing, I just want to file this one last thing,
Mm-hmm.
and just
Right.
dig themselves in deeper.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Well,
But
I was one of those as well. You know, thinking there was justice there when there was nothing but just evil, just evil.
right, right. It seems like everything that becomes corporate becomes perverted. I think the invention of the corporation was one of Satan's most dramatic accomplishments. It has been used to sanitize every evil known to man, and it's time that we shed, you know, the light on what is really going on behind the corporate facade.
Yeah.
The saying that your corporation doesn't protect you against anything. So for those who think it does.
Right.
Okay.
It doesn't even protect their own half the time, their own people, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, well um we we're getting some comments from Keith that some more people we should include in our notice, and and the continuing good news about what um, good food, exercise, and fresh air can do, even for people well into their 80s,
Oh
and how it
yes.
can restore the health that God originally gave us.
Isn't that amazing? Did you
Mhm.
see that? God bless Keith's mother, who's doing pretty good right now, whereas she was doing pretty bad when they had her on all these medications and trying to control her life, and now Keith has her home and he's taking care of her, and he said that she just did I think a 4 mile walk today. Uh,
Yeah.
she's incredible. Keith is really doing a great job with his mother at home and caring for her at home without all the drugs and without all the drama of the corporation involved. You know, what a blessing when you have
Yes.
faith in God uh, and you just move forward with what he tells you to do without question. You just have blind faith and you move forward with what he gives you the gut feeling that is what you should be doing, and you go ahead and do it, and just the blessings that you see from it are immense.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. God made our bodies to be pretty resilient.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's so cool. All right, Catherine. So we will be back here next Thursday at
yep.
9 o'clock with episode 20. And like Catherine said, we would love to get some comments or emails or phone calls on uh, on what the subject you would like episode 20 to be. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thanks
Catherine.
to everybody. All right.
Thank you. Everybody have
Good
a great
night.
night. God bless you all.